Welcome back. In this video we're going to look at the birth and development of the World Wide Web. The World Wide Web developed out of a need that was apparent at CERN, a major physics research facility on the border of France and Switzerland that was founded in 1954. At CERN they had major research projects in which hundreds of scientists were involved and massive data sets were generated. The technology available for communication and storage of data wasn't adequate to address the needs, and thus it left a vacuum and a clear picture of needs for communication and information storage and access. Tim Berners-Lee worked at CERN in the IT department this time, and while he was there, he began to envision his conception of the web. He developed an early system called Inquire, which was inspired by a Victorian-era encyclopedia reference book of sorts. It was his personal system that he used to manage all the information related to the employees and projects at CERN. He based his conceptions of the web on this early software and continued to develop it into a clearer picture and closer to what the web looks like today. He pitched an early paper to the Hypertext conference, and he was rejected. The paper was rejected because it didn't fit many of the things that the hypertext community felt were important. Among them were the concept that every link had to go somewhere. There couldn't be any such thing as broken links. And this limitation, Tim Berners-Lee felt was too confiding. It would require centralized organization and would prevent the web from spreading. So there was some conflict. Tim Berners-Lee continued to develop his idea, and they kind of went in separate directions. In this excerpt, we can see Tim Berners-Lee's own ideas of what he envisioned for the web. Suppose all the information stored on computers everywhere were linked, I thought. Suppose I could program my computer to create a space in which anything could be linked to anything. All the bits of information in every computer at CERN and on the planet would be available to me and to anyone else. There would be a single global information space. So we can look at this and compare it to some of the earlier ideas we saw. For example, H.G. Wells's conception of the web, and see many similarities. As Tim Berners-Lee envisioned the web, he had many requirements. Some of them were realized and some of them were not realized. Among the realized requirements were remote access. People had to be able to access the information from different locations. You couldn't have to connect directly to the machine that the document or resource you wanted was on. Otherwise, only a limited number of people would be able to use it, and it wouldn't quite be effective. Heterogeneity, non-centralization, and access to existing data. So you can see the importance of some of these ideas, and we can see their realization in the World Wide Web as it's implemented today. Among those ideas that were not realized were private links, Tim Berners-Lee envisioned the idea that in addition to exploring public links from one resource to another, you could actually the user could create his own links through the system to be able to connect information and data, which should be visible only to him or her. Of course, this was not realized. Another aspect was that Tim Berners-Lee was not concerned too much with fancy images or graphics. He felt that it would be sufficient to have text that could link to information from one resource to another. He also envisioned the ability to see the connection, the network of links, to visualize the network where all the links went, which is not, of course, possible without some kind of proprietary software. And finally, the idea of live links. The basic premise behind this was that you would be able to know if you're viewing the latest version of a particular resource or if you're viewing an earlier version. Among those non-requirements, you see copyright enforcement, data security, and link integrity. Earlier, in the last section, we looked at Ted Nelson and his work at Xanadu Research Systems, and we see this quotation from Tim Berners-Lee that really seems to be targeted to Ted Nelson. Discussions on hypertext have sometimes tackled the problem of copyright enforcement and data security. These are of secondary importance at CERN, where information exchange is still more important than secrecy. So you see Tim Berners-Lee's paper was rejected at the Hypertext Conference. Ted Nelson was very influential in this group. Ted Nelson opposed the emergence of the web and criticized it initially, as we mentioned in the last section. And here we see kind of a response from Tim Berners-Lee to some of these underlying issues. That the copyright wasn't really a concern, that people can post what they want. Data security is of secondary importance. And link integrity is too restricting. If we want people to be able to put their own information on the web, if we want it to become an information, one global information storehouse, then people have to be able to manage their own links, their own websites, their own resources. And if they're managing their own resources, there are bound to be broken links from time to time, and that this is a necessary evil. So there were kind of odds over these issues. A competing system that emerged around the same time as the web was Gopher. It developed out of the University of Minnesota, and it was very popular in the late 80s, early 90s, maybe about 89 to 93 or so. It wasn't an open source system, and right around the time from 93, it announced that it was going to start charging for licensing fees. Right around that time, prior to that, the web and Gopher were kind of neck and neck. Gopher perhaps is even a little more popular. And right around that time, Gopher died and the web kind of really spiked. It had a fairly easy, it was fairly easy to use in terms of its architecture, but it wasn't as open as the web. It was easy to make Gopher resources available on the web, but the alternative was not true. It was hard to make web resources available on Gopher. This is another factor that contributed to the success of the web and the decline of Gopher. Mosaic was developed in 1993 by Mark Anderson, and this is the first browser that you could view images. So this was a very significant milestone. In 1995, shortly after that, Mark Anderson left the Mosaic Corporation and started Netscape. Yahoo, yet another hierarchically organized Oracle, came out around the same time. Around 1994, we see the emergence of the World Wide Web Conference and the World Wide Web Consortium. This is Tim Berners-Lee's response to being having his paper rejected at the Hypertext Conference. In 1995, we see the emergence of Internet Explorer, which was this is the time, the era of the browser wars, where Microsoft was competing with Netscape, which they viewed as kind of an alternative operating system. One of the initial problems the web was intended to address was the issue with multiple systems not being able to exchange information. So someone could be on a different operating system and they could still get they couldn't exchange information with someone else unless they were on the same operating system. So Tim Berners-Lee wanted to create a system in which this wasn't an issue. Microsoft would love to solve this problem too, but if they were looking at a different solution and they wanted everyone to buy, Microsoft products. In 1996, you have the America Online, which was previously kind of this walled garden. It wasn't connected to the web. It connects to the web and the internet for the first time. This time period is known as the Eternal September, because school started in September, and all of a sudden, you'd have all these new internet users getting on for the first time, and the seasoned internet users would be very frustrated with the lack of understanding of internet etiquette by these new people.